Y'all ready? Let's go. This is your
All right, y'all, here we come, here we come. Let's do this one more time. Okay, good. Hello there, how's everybody doing?
Hi.
Glad to see you once again. We are back with you for another week of conversations.
Conversations.
The week goes by, all kinds of things happen.
All kinds of things.
You never know what's going to happen, but we're here.
We're here.
Glad to be back with you once again. You know, we mentioned over the past couple of weeks that Facebook was changing things again. So now,
yes, they have.
Watch parties are gone.
Yes,
they're a thing of the past. So all that people used to do and sharing with another watch party with this group and that group and all that stuff, that's done. So we got to figure out the next big thing, which looks like it has something to do with how we share from the page, and that way actually people are connected to the page. So if you go to the page, the Destiny Church page, and pick it up there, then you can either send out, you can post it to your page, or you can go right into the live streaming show on the church page. And when you open it up, hit the share there, and you can go to your friends there and share directly to the church page. I think that's probably the best way to do it, but we're figuring it out like everybody else will.
Exactly.
You know, every time they do something. You know, there's a technical thing that you can't see that they change as well. So we were working on that the past couple of times up. What can you do? Supposedly it's getting for the better. I don't know. I don't think so.
Well,
I think they're just changing stuff.
We just have to learn a new process.
Yeah, we just keep doing that. We go with the flow.
That is what COVID has brought about, change and learning.
Major change.
Yes.
A lot of change.
And we've had to learn a lot of new things,
a
new
lot
techniques.
of it for the good too.
Yes, exactly.
You know, we were just talking before we started the program. Let me close this behind us. We were talking before we started the program that you know, just how broad spectrum the gospel is going now.
Yes.
Through Facebook. I was sharing. In fact, hand me that pile, babe.
This.
I was just sharing this list. These are all the prayer requests that have come in this week. Just from the clip that we're playing right now about winning the war, just this week. And they come from all over the country.
Yes, I see that. Yes.
And so people are connecting, receiving the gospel all over the world right now. We were talking to some pastors earlier today, and they were talking about how international the audiences have become. And so it's amazing, you know, every stress point in natural, oftentimes the stress points in life will bring about new horizons,
exactly,
new outlets, new creativity.
Yes,
all these things birth themselves out of you know what the pressures and the stresses that come in life.
Right.
So we're
forced to make change.
You know what? You either live or you die.
Exactly. When
stresses come on you, you think about when a baby is about to be born, either there's new life or there's death. Because if you can't overcome the stress of that moment, you die.
Right.
But if you overcome it, there's new life.
Exactly.
And that's actually a key to life. That happens a lot.
Yes. And we actually end up getting new keys.
Right. You open up new doors.
And new keys.
And new opportunities. And so
new avenues.
There's an aspect of envisioning life that way, that it's either killing you or it's refining you.
Exactly.
You know, and you have to live. You have to decide what your perspective on life is.
That's a very good word. You have to. You end up having to make decisions on which way you're going to go. You know, because we will decide to live.
Yeah. Well, and your mindset oftentimes is what makes a difference.
Right.
Right. You can see this situation is killing me, or you can see this situation as bringing new creativity out of me.
Yes, growing.
Right.
Yes.
And this whole pandemic has been absolutely all about that. You know, either we feel like it's oppressing and it's destroying us, or we feel like I got to think out the box. I got to do things differently.
Yes.
I don't quit. Either you quit or you say, I don't quit, but I'll change.
Right.
I'll figure out a different way to do it, a new way.
A different way. Right. And you end up deciding what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go.
Right.
In order to grow.
Right.
Into whatever is next.
Right. Grow, because those stresses mature you.
Yes, they do.
They take you to another level.
Yes, they do.
And, you know, if you allow them, or they
or
close you
you
up,
fall,
right?
or you will fold.
Yeah,
Yes.
so interesting. We got into that. I don't know how we got there, but we got there. But
Yes.
we'll blame on Facebook. Facebook just brought us. See what Facebook just did? Brought us to a whole nother horizon. We're talking about all these challenges.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. We are here.
So we're dealing with change.
In the middle of the show. This is Conversations with Pam and David here every week on Saturday nights. Glad to have you connecting up, giving you some time to come on board. Send us a thumbs up, say hello, comment, something like that, so we know you're there. But we are limited because we used to have multiple watch parties here, and we would be catching and watching people.
Right
now, you have to catch it through some direct interaction, and so hopefully you've got the message and others got the message to join us on our church page, Destiny Preparation Church, and you will connect up to us live. If you are on the page, you get notifications and things like this when they start. And so then something's coming up. So if you know someone that you have typically watch party to, you need to encourage them to like the page. And then that way they'll be able to connect. Or you can share directly from the live stream, share directly out from there to that person, to your friend, family member, whomever it is. Okay. So we're glad to be here. Obviously, there's stuff to talk about because, it just continues on.
Yes.
And, just the subject matter shifts a little bit, but, life continues to get thrown at us, or we walk through it, or we thrive through it, whatever the case may be. We deal with it.
Walk through it, cry through it, but we get through it.
We deal with it as it comes, right? It comes up and we, we got to deal with this.
Yes, there's something I like to say. We go through to come through.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's something that I have been dealing with. Yeah. Well,
we're still going.
We're still going.
We're still coming through.
We're coming through.
So, this week is the wind up of Derick Chauvin case.
Yes.
Everybody's familiar with Derick Chauvin, who was the officer who basically was holding and constraining George Floyd, ultimately leading to his death. And so there has been this big debate going on, this court case over the past 2 weeks now, going to the third week.
Yes.
Trying to determine legally if he's responsible for his death, or was it just part of the job, or was it Derick Chauvin's fault, or excuse me, was it George Floyd's fault? This has gone the whole horizon.
Yes,
right?
It has.
From blaming it on George himself, saying that it's his fault because if he had just complied, he wouldn't have died.
Or that he had drugs in his system.
To the next level, well, it was because he was already sick and he would have died.
Yes.
To then going and saying
conditions.
that, okay, Chauvin did something that caused him to death, or that in the midst of he died, to all the way to he actually caused his death and allowed it to happen.
Exactly. It's like they're putting the victim on trial.
Well, it goes
and
all
he's
the way,
not even alive.
It goes all the way from the defense all the way to the other side, right? From the prosecutors that want to blame it solely on him, to the defendant that wants to say, look, we didn't have anything to do with this. The guy just died, right?
Yeah.
Or he shouldn't, if he hadn't acted this way, he wouldn't have died.
Yeah, well, it's a situation where the prosecution, they are grabbing at straws.
The prosecution or the defense?
The defense, they're grabbing at straws, and they're trying to say that he also could have died from the car exhaust.
Car exhaust.
And they didn't find any car exhaust fumes or anything.
They point to anything they could find. Right. The car exhaust, a heart attack.
They didn't find any of
drugs, blood pressure.
Right.
You name it. Enlarged heart, all these things. Which, by the way, there are people with all these things that walk around every day, right? High blood pressure, enlarged hearts, even drugs in their system. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die that day.
Exactly.
They may die someday.
And someday.
But that doesn't guarantee it's going to be that
right.
day.
There was no indication from the videos that he was going to die at that day.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
You have to acknowledge the fact that he was stressed by that situation. Right.
Yeah, anybody would be.
So whatever was wrong with him was stressed even further based on the situation, the condition was going on. So again, is it his fault? If he had just got in the car, he wouldn't have gone through all that stress. Was he just under stress because he was being arrested and was just getting hyper? This week is when we're going to hear from a legal perspective what a jury determines to be their decision on the evidence.
Right.
And that's not always right or wrong. I mean, sometimes these things really come down to a decision, right? Based on how the law is defined, based on all these things, so under all these conditions, because a lot of times even if the judge defines the rules differently, it will change the decision of the jury.
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Depending on the conditions of what they're allowed to look at, what they're allowed to consider, et cetera, so forth, it could make the same group of people
Right.
decide slightly differently based on what's presented to them.
Mhm.
So, the outcome of this case, we'll probably hear next week. Closing arguments, I think, supposed to be on Monday, and it'll be turned over to the jury, and we'll see how long it takes them, but I doubt it's going to take them a week. But you never know. We'll see. It could be a hung jury, and they could
it could be. We don't know what's going to happen.
So a lot has come out. We've seen a lot of things, but I think there's a fundamental issue here, and it really has to do with policing and how far policing goes before it crosses the line, right? And so that, I think, is really what's most important in terms of the determination of this case. Somewhere in here, we're creating definition.
Yes.
Right. They talk about the case becoming a precedent.
Yes.
Because you're creating definition of what is still within the boundaries of policing, what is going too far.
Right.
So that, I think, is the real critical thing, right? Because if, let's say, they find him not guilty.
Right.
What have they said? They've said that the things that Derick Chauvin did all the way through to the end are within the boundaries of legal policing.
Right. And that would be very bad.
That would be scary.
That would be scary. Right? Yes, it really would be.
To say that a policeman can treat someone like this under these conditions, and if they die or whatever the case may be, then hey, that's on them. And if they're not responsible to make sure and help them to try and live, even though they've been stressed by what's happened,
right.
That's a lot. If they found him not guilty, that's a huge precedence in favor of liberty for policemen to do whatever they think they should do.
Exactly.
Right. Now you go the other extreme, and let's say they find him guilty of murder in the second degree. You caused his murder, you're responsible for it, you allowed it to happen, and whether you're a policeman or not, you, in essence, initiated this person's death, and you're responsible for it. So what does that say to people?
It's going to force change. It's going to force change in policing and police training.
Well, and also in particular, in terms of ruling. Now, remember, in this case, there was a lot early on of discussion from the people from the Minneapolis police force saying, that is not what we trained them to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
No, that's not on us. That is not what we said.
No, the police department
they
don't want that on them.
Yeah. So this definition of the specifics of training, like you said, this in fact is training, because it's causing them to really be clean cut.
Yes.
In terms of, you can do this, you can't do that.
Right.
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 And so to get the burden off of their shoulders, it's going to cause them, once this is defined through court, right, it's going to cause them to go back and say, okay, look, we can't do this anymore. We can't do this. We can still do this. Here's where the line has to be drawn.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And there are other things that are changing in and around the whole system, as a result of a lot of the stuff that's coming up.
Exactly. There will also be, a duty to intervene.
Right.
For the officer, the other officer. It was their duty to intervene if they feel that a person that is handcuffed is in jeopardy of dying.
Right.
If there's excessive force, the other officers that are there have a duty to intervene. So that is something that they have now enforced. That they are enforcing.
Is that everywhere though? Because I know
in
here
Buffalo, Buffalo, Rochester, and all that, it is because of Carriel Horn, an officer in Buffalo.
So Carriel Horn is the result of this now, right?
Yes.
Because tell that story.
Yes. Carriel Horn is a police officer, African-American police officer, who actually intervened when a fellow officer had a person in a chokehold that was handcuffed. She actually intervened with that officer and made him stop. As a result of that, it was like she didn't follow the police code. So therefore, her job was severely penalized.
Oh, she was fired, wasn't she?
She was fired. Yeah. She lost her pension.
Right.
All of this happened in 2006, 2008. 2008. All of this is what happened. So she has been fighting this situation, this case in court since 2008.
Right.
just a few days ago, the
Friday.
Yeah, just Friday. Yes, Friday. A judge reversed and reinstated her pension.
Right. And so again, she had tried to prevent another officer from using excessive force, choking someone, right?
Yes.
And so they fired her.
Right? Yes.
And so now again, this is being reversed. This is the precedence is saying, look, that there's no way she should have been held responsible for trying to stop a police officer from putting harm to someone else.
Exactly. So that is where now they have the duty to intervene. And also, she's a hero. She's a shero. Yes. She is a shero.
So that's the law changing definition.
And
hang on a second. Because now the next part of that is it becoming actual law. That's a definition thing by a judge.
Right.
But now it's actually becoming law. So in the recent modifications happening here in Rochester to the police system, the Rochester city has proposed rules and laws that will now require an officer to be, as you started saying at the beginning, require an officer to restrict someone from using excessive force.
If you are there and you are on the scene and you see someone, an officer, using excessive force, you have a duty,
responsibility, or you can be held liable for whatever they're doing, right?
Exactly.
And that ties back to this Derick Chauvin case where you have one officer doing this, you have three around him, and nobody steps in at any point. Even after the man has no pulse, even after the man is not breathing, no one steps in at any point to oversee, to override what a superior officer is doing. But now we're saying, look, the three of you in conjunction with that person now will be liable for whatever happens. Because right now they're all being judged separately.
Well,
he's being judged and the other three are going through court separately. But in the future, all four of them will be in that sitting in the courthouse together
Exactly. So so she's been reinstated, her pension and back pay, everything, back pay, all of that. Has been reinstated.
So this goes,
it happened at the time that we are seeing everything on TV and in the headlines and on the internet regarding police officer putting people in African-American people in chokeholds and killing them.
Yeah, not just chokeholds, killing them
actually
too.
Killing them, exactly. So she's been fighting this for 15 years. This is what she's been saying, she told them, you are going to kill this man.
And, not only that, but in the same time, during the same week, we have two more Black young men that get killed by police officers. I mean, just the timing of all this is just incredible, right? Because all this happening simultaneously. So now you have two more. You have Daunte Wright, who was shot by a police officer on this traffic stop.
Adam Toledo.
Right. So we've got, my page disappeared. There he is. So let me show this real quick. Daunte Wright, people have heard of this story already, right? And then we're not going to show all the video and all that just because it's been seen enough. But he's in the car. He gets nervous as he's being handcuffed. He tries to jump back into the car. Now, here's what we got to talk about, because you got a woman, right, police officer, who's crying out taser, but she pulls out her gun, right? And she shoots him and then says, "Oh, I shot him," as he drives off. So this is the debate this is another debate we've been going through all this week, right? The question here being, okay, was this intentional or is this unintentional? Did she make a mistake or did she intend to do this?
That is the question. Immediately the police chief said that he believed that it was a mistake.
Right.
The public, we the people, we have a different view and a different opinion. Well, I can't say not everyone, but some people do.
Right. So some people believe that she did this intentionally.
Some people believe
Some people believe that it was unintentional, a mistake, right? And so you got two scenarios here, right?
Right.
And this is the thing for me. Either she intentionally, well, first of all, unintentionally, either she was working off of, muscle memory, whatever, pulled this out. Now, keep in mind, they wear, and what we've heard is they wear their gun on the right side. Assume if you're right-handed. Taser's on the opposite side, right? So typically you pull taser with one from one side, gun from another. Tasers and gun don't exactly look the same.
No,
right?
a different weight.
Different weight to trigger.
Different trigger,
right?
yes.
She pulls her gun, right?
And says taser.
And says taser several times and then fires. Now, I assume the reason you would say taser is to get other police officers to take their hands off of him, because if they're touching him at the time he gets tasered, that's like a lightning bolt, right? They get shocked too. So I'm assuming that's their protocol, right? To say that to get the other officers off of him. She shoots, right? Here's the wrong sound, pop, instead of this. So if it's unintentional, she was working off of muscle memory. Even though she was thinking taser, she's used to doing this. She used to practice in that.
That's what, yeah.
And so if it's unintentional, she's thinking it all the way through. I'm doing a taser. She's saying and responding in the ways that you do with a taser, but she, out of muscle memory, pulls out the gun and shoots and then realizes, oh man, I just shot the gun instead of shooting my taser. That's if it's unintentional. But if it's intentional, then not only did she shoot him with a gun, but she thought that whole process through before it started, because she's taking the gun out and saying taser so that it will cover, like, I think I'm using my taser. And then pop, oops, I shot him.
It's almost like she's setting up her defense.
So it's either a mistake because she's gone through the motions, or it's completely intentional. There's no in between here.
No,
it's got to be one or the other. Either it was a mistake because she was doing what she's had been used to doing, or she blatantly thought about, knew what she was going to do and covered it up.
26-year veteran police officer,
right?
Who actually trains officers.
Yep.
So she knows the law.
The law. Yeah.
She knows the law. She knows protocol.
Right.
She knows, this is what people are saying. She knows what to say. She would know what to do. And some people think it was.
So if she wanted to cover it up, she knew how to do it. So this is the question. And this is what somebody's going to have to try and figure out.
But first of all, in the first place, why should a police stop stop a car and someone end up dead?
Well,
I mean, why would you kill somebody?
Have ended up dead.
He should not have.
That should not have been the intent of that process.
It never should. That shouldn't have happened.
It was to stop him, right? It wasn't to kill him. It wasn't to even shoot him. But in fact, nobody else around him felt any kind of threat to pull any kind of a weapon. Right. 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 Now, let's just put it this way: if she was using a taser in that situation, do you think that would have been an inappropriate thing to do?
He was. Was he getting ready to?
He's trying to run, right? They were taking him out. They were going to put him in handcuffs. He ran from the handcuffs, jumped in the car, wanted to take off. They were trying to stop him.
Yeah, stop him. What? He had a expired registration, or he didn't have his insurance cards. It was something like that.
Either way.
Either way.
If he was going to run, do you think it was a wrong thing to have tasered him?
I gotta think about that one.
Because the intent was he's trying to run away. He's trying to run away. He's resisting arrest. He's trying to run away. You're trying to stop him, right? But
you don't kill him. Maybe tase.
Nobody else.
Could they have? There. You know what? How many officers were there? There's probably about three.
About three
officers. They could have handled him and handcuffed him.
They were trying to.
He got in the car.
He was
and he took off.
And he was pulling away. He was in the car,
so he was
just about to hit the gas.
And
so they were losing control of him. And so one of them pulled out supposedly a taser and tased him. I don't think if he was tased, that would have been an inappropriate thing to do.
Maybe not.
Now, for them to start shooting at the car once it goes down the road, that would have been totally unnecessary considering what this was about, right? If it's about a traffic stop, if it's about an expired whatever, you don't shoot at the car, right, to try and stop somebody. That would be over and above. Her pulling out a gun and shooting him under that condition, completely inappropriate.
Shooting and killing.
Right. But if it's a mistake, if it was an accident, then that is, so they're going to have to go through this process of looking at this. line by line, detail by detail, and trying to determine what the best probability of this was. Was this intentional? Was it a mistake? I'm sure they're gonna look at her background. They're gonna look at, what she's said in the past, how she's treated people, blah, 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 to see if there's any kind of pattern here. What's her life experience? So that's gonna lead to what it's gonna lead to. But ultimately, you have another Black young man that's killed in the hands of the police. Now, you can also make the case on the other side of it to say, again, that had he not tried to resist, none of that would happen. Right? If he had just stayed there and just let them take him. And just, we do have to keep in mind, and I'm not trying to put blame on, the people here. Hey, we got some people. Hello, people. Sorry, I haven't looked. I didn't have it long enough, open wide enough to see what people were saying, but we'll come back to that in a second. Don't want to necessarily blame people because the victims are scared. They are hyper intimidated right now.
Yes.
But I can tell you this, when has running from the police ever turned into anything good? It never does. To think that you're going to get away with just running away, and that, that's like the movie stuff, right?
Yeah.
When somebody runs away and disappears and never get caught. That ain't happening, right? They're gonna come find you. You may get a couple more hours, a couple more days, but they're gonna track you down.
They're gonna try,
right?
Yes.
So running away if has to be the wrong thing to do. Now, people don't want to be controlled like that. They're afraid of being controlled like that. All kinds of mental, emotional issues for that. Understood. But running away is not the answer. Even if he got in the car and now he's driving down the road at 80, 90 miles an hour trying to get away, you run into something, right? You got all these other cars around you. So that doesn't go anywhere. All these different, you go somewhere and you hide and they bring out dogs. And next thing you know, they got dogs chewing on you.
You run and you get shot in the back.
It's just running away is not the answer, right?
What is the answer? Because, you have people with their hands up.
That's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story.
Yes. you are absolutely
and then you get
at risk, right? In any kind of a confrontation at these days.
Yes.
Especially as an African American,
we are
immediately at risk.
And you are afraid. People are afraid to be stopped by the police.
So there's only a couple of things you can do. And by the way, that's another case last week. Remember the lieutenant, the Army guy?
Yes.
He was stopped. He did everything exactly right.
Right.
He drove the car to a visible location.
Right. And he was smart to do that.
Turned on his camera.
Yes.
He completely, only thing he didn't do was get out of the car.
He said, he says, I'm afraid to get out of the car.
He was very
hands up the whole time.
He did not fight. He did not resist. When they sprayed him, he didn't respond
he
back.
Asked them,
when they pulled him, opened up his car and pulled him out, he didn't fight them. He didn't, and especially as a military person, because if he truly had fought because he's trained to fight, they would have really held it on him.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Right? He did everything. The only thing you can do is comply and pray. And do it as publicly as you possibly can, right?
He was wise. He was very smart to drive into an area that was well lit.
But here's the thing. The public aspect of it, honestly, it doesn't necessarily help you in the moment. It helps you afterwards. Because in the moment, as we can all see, as we've all seen, they still gonna do what they're gonna do, right? But it helps you afterwards when it's public, because now you have witnesses to what took place. Well,
but it helps your case.
If you didn't die, then it helps somebody to be able to judge for justice, right? So making it public, if that being visualized, somebody on camera, whatever the case may be, get good angles, get good lighting, go to a public place. You have to comply,
right?
Because the more you resist, the worse it's liable to be for you. And I know people don't want to hear this, but there is no other way. Running, fighting just doesn't do it.
Well, I mean, what does? Because you have people that are, like we're saying now, you have people that are complying. You have people with their hands up. You have people that don't have a weapon and they still end up being killed. So, I mean, you're saying running away doesn't help. Well, what are we to do? And this is the fear. This is what African American people fear. They fear being stopped by the police.
But see,
they go into panic.
But remember what we were saying earlier on when we were talking about the change that's taking place.
Yes.
It's taking place because it's happening through the legal system.
Right.
It's not happening
because of the rioting.
of what we're doing. It's not happening because we resist.
The laws have to
because
change.
in the resistance of it, hey, the only thing you can do, and this is really what happened in the time of Martin Luther King and them as well. They stood up and it was public.
Right.
So when people in other parts of the country were able to see what was happening to these people in Alabama, they were seeing the pictures. They had reporters there.
Right.
It became visual. That's when the pressure mounted to say, this has to stop.
And that's what's happening
and that's
now.
what's happening now.
Yes.
It's not, you cannot fight your way out of a one-on-one or a 5-on-1 with any police group.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No.
It's just going to get worse. The only thing you can do at that point in time is comply. And this is the funny thing, because like you see, we asked the question a little while ago, how is it, our folks that get stopped in these simple little things, they get killed. You get a guy that goes out and shoots 30 people and he gets walked out in handcuffs. Totally fine.
Exactly.
Right? Because they don't fight when the police show up. They're like, okay, it's over.
Well, they're not afraid of the police. They have no reason.
But that may be a reason why.
Well, they have no reason.
Behavior is different. And the behavior is what causes them to be able to walk out in handcuffs versus being sprawled on the floor.
Well, they don't feel that they're going to be killed. Well, African-American people have PTSD right now.
I understand. I understand all that. I understand that this is why they're acting this way.
Right.
But I'm talking from the rational standpoint to say it does not help and it does not work.
We don't know what helps. We don't know what works. We don't know what's going to save our lives.
We're talking about right now.
Exactly.
The only thing you can do is comply at that
pray.
Moment.
Right.
At that moment, the only thing you can do is comply.
Yes.
Because
be calm.
if you respond out of your fear and anxiety, and I'm telling you, even then there's no guarantee.
No.
Right?
There isn't.
And I understand that. But running and fighting and shooting back does not work. It just doesn't work. Here's the case in point again. We were talking about another young man, 13-year-old child.
Yes.
That now, again, Adam Toledo, he was in a bad situation, right? It appears he was hanging out with gang guys.
Yes. Had a gang tattoo.
There was shooting going on.
He was initiated.
He probably had a gun in his hand.
Yes.
Some questions as to whether he
Should have
did
been
or
home.
didn't. But when the police officer, he was doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. But the police officer said, put your hands up. And guess what he did?
Hands are up.
He dropped whatever he had and put the hands up. The police officer didn't wait but even a second. When he complied, when he did what he told him to do, he shot him 8 times. This is the case in point you're saying about why our people are so afraid.
Yes.
Right? They have reason to be. I'm not saying that they don't. But for him to start shooting back, you think it would have made it better?
Of course not.
That's my whole point. The best you can do in a situation like that is to be slow, is to be careful, is to comply, because you have trigger happy people like that. And if they think you're looking wrong, remember the guy that came out of his garage, he had a phone in his front hand,
garage,
his other hand
at home.
Comes out. You have to be so cautious and careful. And it's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing.
It is.
That we have to feel that way. And when I say we, I mean literally we. I mean all of us at this point. When you get stopped by a car by a policeman in a car for anything at this point, I don't know if I did anything, didn't do anything. Listen, I drive a car and it doesn't have a front license on it because it's not designed for that. I can get stopped at any time by a police officer, right? For having a car with no light. And once he stops me, things can go sour and bad real quick.
Very quick.
So you got to be, we've talked over the past year or so or more. Now, a lot of men have been training their kids, especially their Black young men. You get stopped in a car, hands up, put your license out, don't say nothing stupid, don't make any sudden moves. It's terrible that's where we are, but that's how you have to be. You have to comply. Now, if there's a problem, if it's on video, if it's on whatever, you can deal with that later accordingly, but you need to live first, right? You need to live first and then deal with that stuff after the fact.
Right.
Running, fighting is not getting it done. So somebody was saying online, said, I think these types of police persons will start to turn a deaf ear and eye to the crimes that happen, and some of them will transfer. So in other words, and we're seeing this right now, because what he's saying is that in some of these areas where stuff is happening, the police now don't want to get involved. And we've seen this already. When stuff starts happening in a neighborhood, the police are slow to show up. There's gunfire and stuff happening. They're not showing up in the middle of that. They're showing up after the fact because they don't want to be in the middle of something and have to pull their gun and then somebody accuse them of doing X, Y, and Z. This is not just the bad police officers, this is the police officers in general, because now they're all feeling I'm in risk of being in a situation where I could get not only fired, but put in jail.
Yeah.
So they are definitely getting more cautious about engaging in stuff, right? And I don't know if that makes it any better, really, because it allows more space for crime to begin to continue to expand itself, explode, and exploit situations like this.
This is true.
So it's a messed up, nasty situation.
It really is.
That's going on, in and around us right now. And where that's going to lead to is a big question. So, the funny thing is, and let's go back to the positive now.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
The positive is it does seem like we're starting to get at least now more communication, dialogue by people that need to be talking about this. We've needed voices of key figures, of political figures, things like that. And so now we're starting to see, the president, first of all, and that would have never happened a year ago.
No.
We're starting to see the president come up and say, look, all this killing, all this shooting, it's got to stop.
It's got to
do
stop.
something about this.
Exactly.
You have governors now, you have congressmen, you have other senators that are starting now to talk about it, because this is what we've been hyping about for weeks now, is the fact that with all this stuff going on over the past year, how many political figures have you seen really talking about this? And until the political it becomes a political thing where it has pressure and push to make change in the laws, you're spinning your wheels.
Yes.
Right. And so now you're finally getting that. Even this one with Pat Robertson, can you believe that? Everybody knows Pat Robertson to be one of the strongest from the evangelical side, which again has not said a word about this stuff. They've totally stayed away from it. But Pat Robertson, at least, thank you, comes up and says, they got to stop this stuff. There's a couple of different things where he's
showing the difference between a gun and
a taser, right? And he's saying, look, this can't go on like this. We can't keep killing all these people.
Right.
All these young people. Now, I don't know if they're saying black people, but you keep saying,
that's
you
what's
can't
being
be killed all these people.
That's what's in the media.
So at least they're starting to line up and say, this has to stop.
Yes.
Right? There's got to be some change in this. So as that momentum continues up, and again, that is the momentum that happened in the 60s. You started getting an alignment of all these different sects and sides that said, look, there has to be change. When they're seeing people bloodied in the streets, they're seeing people dragged in jail, they're seeing, not only just the black people, but then you had like white people, and you had news people that were coming down, all this stuff. You had other preachers and from all different sects, Jews coming down, and they're all getting beaten and attacked, right? And it got so visible to the point where he said, you know what, this got to change. And that's when the president stepped in to help change the law. Right. So it's getting back to that point. I mean, think about it. Like just during this case, how many other cases have been going on?
Quite a few
over the past year.
Yes.
And it's getting so visible at this point that it's drawing so much attention that people are saying, look, something's got to change.
Exactly. And they are actually starting to make police officers accountable. They're being, they have to go to court. Right. They're being arrested, so.
Well, first of all, step one,
they're being fired.
These things are being defined as homicides.
Yes.
Right. Because it used to be, well, it was death by asphyxia, it was death by this, but now they're coming out and they're saying this was a murder.
Right.
This person was killed.
Exactly. They're bringing charges against police officers. We didn't see that.
Right. That's the next step.
Yes.
Now people are, because they're calling it and defining it at the site of death as murder. Now it comes back and say, okay, well, who's responsible for this murder? Right. And so they're starting to bring charges on police officers, and they've done that in the past.
Yes.
But now police officers are actually starting to get convicted at these higher levels.
Right.
So it used to be police officers would get fired, they would lose their pensions, they be put, on, temporary leaves, etc. Now it's moved to, okay, these levels of not only losing your pension, you're being charged. You may go to jail.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so as it escalates, there are changes that are going on. There are restrictions to certain types of things. So it's been a slow process.
Yes.
But it does appear that there are some changes that are coming on now.
Yes.
And when you think about how long this has been going on and how long it's taken just to get to some of these levels.
Well, you know what? Now we have proof. We have evidence. We have telephones. We have cameras. We can actually.
There's been evidence going all the way back to Rodney King.
Yeah. But we've got more.
Rodney King, they had pictures.
They did.
There was evidence back then. But they all got off, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they did. They did. However, we have more access.
Yeah.
More people have telephones. More people are able to take videos. Thanks to technology, we have evidence as to what is really going on. We've been making noise. Yeah. We have been saying this, but it's a matter of having facts.
Well, I think
we have facts to substantiate our claims now.
I think now the biggest thing is the culture is changing.
Exactly. Well,
right.
This is part of the culture change.
Well, yeah, and it's not just our culture that's changing.
Right.
It's the whole culture that's getting tired of this.
Exactly.
They're getting tired of turning on the news and here's another one and there's another one and it happened again. And maybe this isn't coincidence because I keep seeing it every time I turn my television on. And so it is starting to have an effect on people, the culture itself to say, look, how we stop? What are you doing? Can we stop this? How are we going to stop this? Right. And that's causing the pressure that's necessary to get the laws to change. You need the laws to change and then you need enforcement of those laws.
Right.
So it's progress. It's rough. It's tough on everybody, but it is progress. We're getting somewhere, hopefully. And speaking of getting somewhere, hopefully we're getting somewhere against COVID because, it's been a rough ride that continues on. And, the caseloads right now are really, right now they're on the way up again. So I lost my thing. So let's do this real quick. I want to show you kind of where we stand. Let me pull this up for you real quickly. What's happening right now, just to change our direction for a moment. I don't know if it's better, but this is United States, and you can see we have an uptick from where we were. But across the country, it's a gradual uptick. But in certain areas of the country, it has really been rough. Now, New York, believe it or not, where we are, dear, New York has escalated again. We got some issues going on again in New York. It's gotten pretty significant across the state, different parts of the state, more extreme than others. And especially now, really in the northeastern parts of the country. It's kind of like New York, Ohio. We'll talk about Michigan in a second.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yes.
All these northeastern states, where you expect, where they had all the, spring break and all that in the South, doesn't look so bad. Texas right now doesn't look bad at all. Look, Texas is like seeing nothing. Florida, just a little bit. Alabama, just a little bit. But the worst of all right now is Michigan.
Yes.
And Michigan is now worse than it was ever. And it's skyrocketing. And so they're reaching a point of desperation in Michigan because the hospitals again are filling up, all these different things. People are catching COVID all over Michigan. And so it's still out there. It's still an issue. It's still a problem. And if you're not taking care of yourself and those around you,
right.
We got realities right now in our own household, right? In our own family.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
People, extended family, not here in the house.
Not here in this house.
But there are people that are we know very close to us now who have recently caught COVID and are dealing with that. In fact, one's in the hospital tonight.
Yes.
So this thing is still here. It's still real.
It's still here.
Now on the vaccine front, we'll switch to that for a second. Oops, sorry. On the vaccine front, almost 40% of the people in the country have had at least one dose. Now that's getting there, right? About 25%, just under 25% are fully vaccinated now. And you can see dark areas of the country are where there's the most saturated. Southern areas or some of these light areas are where they have less saturation in terms of vaccine. So it's getting out there, but we still got to be careful and conscious. It is still a major issue going on with COVID. I'm hoping, so two things. I'm hoping that as this rate continues to go up, we'll move a little bit further beyond this danger zone to where we can really live again. People are jumping out still so fast ahead of things that's problematic. But, I'm also, we have to be conscious and careful. But I'm hoping in the second half of this year that we will see enough people as more and more people get vaccinated, that we'll be in a better state. But I'm also concerned now because I believe that the rate of people that are getting the vaccine is slowing down already. It used to be that there was not enough vaccine available and there were more people, supply and demand. There was more demand than there was supply. And so you had all these people at the first that were trying to get somewhere to get a vaccine shot and they weren't available. Now there's more supply than there is demand. And they're saying that the gap between the two is actually widening. In other words, demand is here, but supply is starting to, supply is here, but demand is starting to go down. In other words, you have these, let's say first 50% of the country that really want to get vaccinated and move on. But you're getting to the point now where there's a lot more people that don't want to get it.
Yeah.
And so this demand, the rates that they're saying like 4.5 million people a day is going to start slowing down because people who want it have got it or are getting it. And there's going to be, how many people are going to be left that are going to say no is really the big question. And I think over the next month or so, we're going to start seeing that tip. And not because we don't have vaccine, but because you have less people that really want to get it. And so we'll see where we end up, how far we go in terms of who's going to have vaccine and who's not, who's going to be vaccinated and who's not. And part two, now they're talking about, okay, we can get vaccinated, we'll be good, right? Now they're talking about second, third shot.
Really?
Yeah.
That I have not heard.
They just started talking about Pfizer officially this week was saying that it looks like people may need to get a booster shot within a year, and they may need to get an annual shot.
Well, isn't this the same thing that happened with measles, mumps, rubella, influenza, the flu?
Yeah. It's heading towards the same type of process that we see. So it's not a total shock, right? Now, the idea is, had we nipped this in the bud early, if we had it and we had done this, you could have completely eliminated this disease, right? Virtually eliminated this disease. If everybody in a certain area, if it was contained and they got the shot, you could eliminate it. But the reality is that's not generally what's going to happen. It just comes out slower and integrates because it's contagious disease, right? So it's a reality that this will probably go into the same alignment, if you will, of getting the flu shot, annual flu shots and things like that. Now there are some shots, talk about some of those other diseases you get as a child when you're early and you're done with it. Right. Tetanus, I think you have to get every 10 years, something like that. But see, keep in mind, we already do this, right? We do the tetanus shot every 10 years. Yeah. You get shots, you get about 3 times when you're a child, right? Yes. They don't give them once, they get about 3 times across up to until you get through puberty. This is the way we live. Right? It's just another one that we're canceling out through this kind of approach. Right. So people should not be that shocked that they're saying, oh no, we have to come back and get more. We're going to do this again. Don't be that shocked. But this one really is a killer, as we know. So it's one that we will probably, you're going to want to do in order to protect. So this is kind of where things are right now, with the vaccine, with COVID, with the life that we're living. A lot of things are opening now. The planes are filling up. Travel is up. The cost of travel is up. Everybody's getting out there, perhaps a little bit early, but the reality is this stuff is still out there. And if you're not vaccinated, you are still very much in jeopardy. The good news is,
and you still need to wear a mask.
Right. If you are vaccinated, the chance that you're going to die now is nearly zero.
Right.
At least now.
Right.
Until it changes again. But until the bug changes again, the bug itself changes again. So right now, this vaccine will keep you from dying. That's number one. And it will more than likely keep you from getting badly sick and it will more likely keep you from spreading it to somebody else.
Right.
3 solid reasons why you should get vaccinated. Right?
Yeah.
So when we going somewhere? I'm just all right, folks. I think we're gonna wind up. We're gonna call it a night. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, got something out of this, and we'll look forward to connecting up with you again. We're winding off. We'll be back on tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. for our morning word and worship service here. Join us on the church Facebook page, and remember, we can't watch party now. So you got to come to the page to connect up with us or get it from being shared directly to someone.
Right.
So until tomorrow, you guys have a good night.
Yes.
We're going to go kick back and get something to eat and finish getting ready for tomorrow and look
more things to do.
Yeah. We'll look forward to connecting up with everybody in the morning. So hopefully you have enjoyed tonight, learned something, received something, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow and then next week as well. All right. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you. Bye, William, Heather, everybody else who was on. Good night to you. We'll see you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
We serve a mighty God. We serve a holy God.